Hey, welcome back, guys. Doug back at you again. It is Easter weekend as I record this, and it's a beautiful one, so I thought I'd take it outside for the first time this year. Hopefully the first of many to come. Too nice to be indoors on a day like this, but I hope everybody's having a great weekend. This is going to be one of sort of a periodic series of videos I'm going to do for you, kind of being more reggae focused, trying to get some artists maybe a little bit better known, better recognized, for people that maybe are not quite as familiar with them. I did a Dennis Brown video recently, which I got a good response to. I actually posted one of his records on Instagram and got a like from his daughter, which was really cool. So I was going to do a Gregory Isaacs video next. I'm still going to do that very soon. But first I wanted to do a little video about Jimmy Riley. Now, Jimmy is not too well known outside reggae, but he was one of the last of the kind of the rock steady era vocalists that came out of that period from 1966 to 68, which was very influenced by American soul. Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, Four Tops, the Temptations, all those groups, but with a uniquely Jamaican rhythm. And we lost Jimmy on 23rd of March 2016, the same day that news broke that Fife Dog from A Tribe Called Quest had passed on, which there was an outpouring of tributes to him, and deservedly so. But the news about Jimmy kind of got delayed or overlooked a little bit, except in reggae circles, where we saw quite an outpouring of tributes from artists you wouldn't really expect to have a connection to him. The dancehall artist Sizzla came out and said that Jimmy was basically like a father to him, and many other similar tributes. So I thought I'd do a quick tribute. Jimmy Riley was born in 1954. His real name was Martin Riley. Jimmy was kind of a nickname. He grew up in the Waterhouse area of Kingston, Jamaica, which was later sort of ironically termed Firehouse due to the level of crime and gun violence there. He started singing professionally probably around the age of 14, and he was first associated with a group called the Sensations, which recorded for Duke Reid's Treasure Isle label. Later, these groups tended to be kind of fluid in their memberships. A later version of the group was later fronted by future superstar Johnny Osborne and cut the Comeback Darling album a few years later. Jimmy probably not on that album, but he went on to join a group called the Uniques, actually a second incarnation of or lineup of that group, formed around lead vocalist Keith Slim Smith, he's better known as. I talked about him in an earlier vinyl update video. Slim Smith was one of the absolute great voices of Jamaican music. His life was cut tragically short, but the Uniques cranked out a series of hits for producer Bunny Lee. They were one of the top rock-steady groups of the late 60s. There was actually, in the intensely competitive scene at the time, there was actually a singing competition at one time, and Bob Marley and the Wailers were in the lead, winning the competition, and then the Uniques came in and stole the contest away from them. And things got tense afterward, and as Jimmy recounts it himself, Bob Marley pulled a knife on Slim Smith, allegedly, and things got pretty tense with two posses squaring off against each other, but in the end, everybody decided it would be better to remain friends, and everybody walked away on good terms. Slim Smith and Jimmy were like brothers. They were childhood friends growing up. They filled out the Uniques with another friend called Lloyd Charmers. All three of these guys would go on to have distinguished careers in Jamaican music, so it was a killer lineup. Slim Smith unbeatable on the lead vocals, but backing vocals were no slouch either with Jimmy and Lloyd. And they cut out a series of hits, as I said. Later went on to go... Slim Smith went solo after a while. He was in a fragile emotional state, and as I've recounted before, there was one night, as Jimmy recounts the story, he was in New York at the time when he heard the news. Slim Smith was out with friends. They'd been smoking some ganja, and he came home to his parents' house late one night. It was locked up. He couldn't get inside, so he crashed a window with his fist trying to gain entrance to the door, lacerated his arm so badly that he bled to death before help could arrive. And Jimmy was absolutely devastated when he heard the news, couldn't believe it at first. So when he got back to Jamaica, started becoming a solo artist, moving into production as well. Unique's recording career is been nicely anthologized on a number of compilations. This one is Pressure Sounds, called Watch This Sound. This came out in 1998. And the title track, Watch This Sound, is kind of an adaptation of the Buffalo Springfield song, For What It's Worth. And this one is called Absolutely Rock Steady. There's the group there, Slim Smith in center. This one is from 2010, both on Pressure Sounds label out of England. Very excellent reissue label. As Jimmy moved into his solo career, this late 70s record he put out, Makossa International Records presents Jimmy Riley. This was released out of the US on Makossa label. This is produced by Jimmy. Some killer tracks. This is about, 1980 rather, this one is. This phase of his career has also been, again, on Pressure Sounds, nicely compiled on here. This is a compilation called Live It to Know It. This is fairly recent. This came out 2015, actually. Very recent. This is a 2 LP set with some various singles, mainly produced by Jimmy. Includes some rare dubplate mixes, alternate versions, extended cuts, and it includes a couple of tracks from that Makossa International record. Later on, following those recordings, Jimmy started working more closely with Sly and Robbie's Taxi label. Sly and Robbie, of course, the famous bass and drum and production duo, working with Grace Jones and many other internationally known artists, hugely prolific, and by the early 80s they were looking to change up the sound, and they introduced a more syncopated, syndrum influenced sound which completely changed the sound of reggae at the time. He put out a couple albums with them. This one actually was a very early thrift store find for me. Found this with 3 other records years ago. Put the People First. This is on the Shanachie label from 1982. And you can see the back cover was later used on the cover of that Live It to Know It compilation. And probably his greatest album was this one, also for Sly and Robbie from the previous year, Rhythm Driven. This contains probably his signature song, Love and Devotion, which was earlier done by the Uniques. Actually, there's quite a lot of covers on this one. There's a cover of Joe Simon's The Chokin' Kind, The Temptations' I Wish It Would Rain, and lots of very accentuating the soul side of his vocals. He was kind of compared to David Ruffin from The Temptations, which that was one thing that Jimmy did, was bring that rock steady tradition of vocalizing forward into the 1970s and 80s with the change in sound intact. And as I said, Love and Devotion, probably his signature song as done for Sly and Robbie, the earlier version for the Uniques. I'll put links to a few key songs down in the comments below. This is the 12-inch version of Love and Devotion on Sly and Robbie's Taxi label. It's got writing and stamping from a sound system that belonged to. This record would have been played in dances at the time in the early 80s. Now, Jimmy sort of faded away from the recording scene in the 1980s, came back to it in the 1990s. His son, Taurus Riley, has actually been a successful singer for a number of years now, which got Jimmy kind of more involved in coming back to the music. His most recent album was released in 2013, and he had I'd actually shown that Live It to Know It compilation in an earlier video, and I think I mentioned that I'd heard he was not feeling well at that time. But it turns out he was suffering from bone cancer, which was being treated in the US, and he unfortunately passed away from that, as I said, on 23rd of March 2016. And he was one of the last of that era of great vocalists from the classic rocksteady sounds. So that's Jimmy Riley. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll bring you more very soon. Cheers, guys. Peace.